Hi, everyone. Welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This week, helping me tackle all the biggest headlines are royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams and former royal editor to The Sun and a royal author himself, Charles Ray. Good to see you both again. I mostly tried to keep us Sussex free this week. I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all.
It's interesting. It'll be an anthropological study, to see whether we can keep off them.
That's the truth. That is,
However, I suspect that they will get a mention somewhere.
yeah, no, I know. You're absolutely
It's
right.
like, you haven't got any wine lurking around, have you?
I don't. I don't. Okay. All right. Well, so one of the stories that I thought, well, it touched my heart this week was seeing Catherine, Princess of Wales, looking absolutely beautiful. She was spotted at RHS's Wellbeing Garden in Essex on Wednesday. She toured the garden, which opened in July of 2024, and learned about how it's this relaxing and restorative space for the NHS staff and patients that are unfortunately at this hospital. Catherine has been a passionate advocate for the benefits of nature and being outdoors. Charles, tell me some of the things that Catherine said while she was at this event. She was candid about her cancer recovery.
Yes, she was, and this is the garden. This is what they call a well-being garden, and it's situated at Colchester Hospital, which deals with an awful lot of cancer patients. So this is a garden where they can go and relax and enjoy themselves and have a chat with the staff. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Catherine was quite candid about her own cancer treatment. Now, as we know, cancer is a terrible, horrible, horrible disease. Um, and what she's actually saying is that when you are in the system, when you are being looked after by the nurses and the doctors, there's a clinical base, and that, everybody's encouraging you and helping you to recover if that is at all possible. But what she added was that once you're on the road to recovery, as she is, and we think is now cancer free, you're very much left to your own devices. It's like go away. I mean
No,
that in a
yeah,
nice
yeah.
go away, not we're forgetting
You're on
about.
your own. You're on your own to
You're on
figure
the
it out. Yeah.
exactly the point she made. And so yes, she's got a loving family that's helping her and everything else, but it's not the same as being in that system where you can turn to people who are much more have much more expertise in it. And I think she didn't directly say this, but I think what she's actually suggesting is that cancer patients, cancer sufferers, cancer survivors still need to have people around who understand them and understand what they are going through. I mean, it's all very well to have William and the children and other friends and relatives all around, but I think she's saying cancer cancer sufferers do need this help to continue.
Yeah, a support system is so important,
Yeah.
even when it comes to technical things like why am I not able to run as far as I used to on the
Sure.
elliptical or the treadmill or something? Those are questions I imagine that she had. We know how much she loved working out. I used to hear stories about how much she loved working out. Richard, I interpreted the chat a little differently, although I love what Charles said. Tell me if you think I digested it incorrectly, but I wondered if she was saying it takes a long time for us to feel better. So when I say I don't want to show up at Royal Ascot, step off. I need a minute. I'm still recovering, and you don't just it's not like a rubber band where I'm back in the same shape that I was before I was knocked out.
That is precisely the message, so as to speak, slightly subliminally, because as Charles was saying, I mean, what she was, when she was talking, she was interacting, she was also being quite frank about some of the problems and also support systems. And I mean, I absolutely loved her planting the Catherine Rose, which I thought was charming. Apparently, there are going to be quite a large number of them. I mean, that was very, very clear the way she also tried acupuncture and the mind, body, and spirit, and so forth. And I think that is tremendously significant, especially to other cancer sufferers. And of course, she's in remission. But there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the subtext of this is tied to the terrific pressure that members of the royal family are under, because I was at Ascot when Royal Ascot when Prince William was there, and it was the Prince's stakes, and he was presenting the trophy, and there had been an unfortunate mix-up, and it was announced she was going to be there, which is what we'd hoped for, and then of course it made news, and it made the news of the day. The fact that King was there, he was there every day of the week. The fact that Prince William had been expected, that wasn't the point. And yet, once again, what she feels very, very clearly, that the fact that it's world news when she doesn't appear at an engagement. One of the reasons I was so interested, and I agree with your interpretation of it, was that fateful word balance, the fact that you have to very, very carefully balance a treatment. Once you're in remission, once you're obviously getting stronger, you will have good days and bad days. And I as an ME sufferer, for example, I know what that's like. It's something that's very difficult to predict. Now, when you're actually dealing with something like cancer, and also something that can be so deadly, my mother died of it tragically. It's so important that people understand that sometimes, I mean, this is a real problem for the royal family in the weeks and months ahead, when planning ahead is so important, and the king is able to do it quite amazingly. I mean, I know he's a workaholic, and I know that he's devoted to duty, but even so, it's amazingly difficult, and it must be so stressful for the person, because you know that people want to see you. You know also that it's going to be blown up to proportions that it needn't be when you don't appear, or if you don't appear. And it's also quite difficult to recover as you normally would under those circumstances, not to mention also bringing up children and dealing with various aspects of life. For example, early childhood, she's of course involved in that. It's terribly difficult, and that, I think, was definitely the subtext of what she was saying. And I do, one wishes that news, we all know what news is, but one wishes that this were somehow people would absorb the fact that there's going to be could be quite a lot of this. We know that the king had a glitch quite recently, and unfortunately there's no way around it, as I see it.
That's a good point, Charles Ray. Richard's exactly right. There's got to be so much pressure on her when it comes to canceling plans, and the dread of the repercussions when it comes to canceling plans. And can I tell you how much I love canceling plans? I love staying at home in my pajamas. I feel bad for her. I don't know.
You staying at home in your pajamas, Kinsey, doesn't make world news. Maybe we should have your place staked out with some photographers. But the Richard's right. I mean, the point is, and unfortunately, she is living under the microscope and of news, and so every time something like this happens, and I agree with both of you that she needs the space. She needs to be able to sort of say, "I'm sorry, I'm not coming out to play today. I just want a day at home, or I want to do something else." But unfortunately, you have these appalling keyboard warriors on social media who keep criticizing her for being lazy and everything else, which is absolutely appalling. And I just wish those people would leave her alone. Anything that the royals do is going to be news. It's inevitable, because that's where they are and whatever. But I think the newspapers themselves and the broadcast media have done a reasonably good job in giving her that time. So, as Richard said, she cancels Ascot because there was a cock up somewhere. Someone issued a bit of a statement, a bit of paper. She didn't turn up, and that's it. It's up in the air again. But I am very keen that she gets that time and she gets that space, so that she controls everything to do with her own health.
I'm going to stay on you for a second, if you don't mind, Charles, because I know you actually saw some of this firsthand. It was so nice to see, and he didn't acknowledge it, but we connected the dots. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, uh, spending time with his homeless initiative on his mother's
Yeah.
birthday. And that was his subtle way of honoring his mother on her
Yeah.
birthday. He opened up about his mission to help those who've had their backs turned on them by society. He celebrated the second anniversary of his homelessness initiative, Homewards, this week. He was joined by some big names and familiar faces, entrepreneur and podcaster Stephen Bartlett and former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. And they spoke about how ending homelessness is going to be a team effort. And it's just been so wonderful to see how committed he is to this particular project. But also, it's nice to see him honor his mother so subtly and quietly through meaningful work. And you saw some of that when you were at the Sun.
Yes, I did, and you have to remember that William and Harry, to be fair to him as
Well,
well.
so to be fair to Harry, his wife launched an alcoholic beverage on his mother's birthday, and she died at the hands of a drunk driver. So that's why I have to give praise to Prince
No,
William
no,
there.
no. You're absolutely right. I was talking about the young Harry when,
Oh, okay.
I used to take both boys and she would introduce them, to homeless people and William, in fact, when he got a little bit older, camped out or slept out like with homeless people. He's much more attuned to the homeless story that certainly Harry is. But it is correct that he was that when he did that on that day, it was in tribute to his mother. Now, this program, as you quite rightly said, has been 2 years in standing, and there's 6 areas in Britain where this project is underway. He's not going to solve homelessness on his own, and he makes no pretense that he's going to do that. But it is a start, and our government needs to get behind the homeless scenario in this country, particularly veterans that we have who are sleeping rough. In every major city that we have a terrible homeless scenario. And so they need to do something. But I mean, I'm not sure that the government has got so many problems at the moment in this country that
Can
I
relate.
don't I don't think they're going to be, too keen on getting started on something else. But all praise to William. He got praised by both Stephen Bartlett and the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown for his achievements. And these projects that he's carrying out are working. They're definitely working. And if it takes half a dozen people off the streets or a dozen people off the streets, then it's a success.
I agree with you. Richard, the ex prime minister, made a stark comparison between the prince and his late mother. He said, and I'm curious to know if you agree with this. Remember, his mother changed people's views on AIDS. His mother changed people's views on landmines. And I think he's changing people's views that you've got to think of a homeless person as an individual who has potential, who, if given the proper chance, can actually make something of their lives, and not as someone to be discounted as a down and out. If that's his legacy alone, what a beautiful legacy what a beautiful legacy he's potentially building.
Oh, undoubtedly, you have mental health, the environment, and homelessness, most particularly, because as we've always said, I mean, he's chosen fewer charities deliberately, as Catherine has, but of course they do more for the ones that they concentrate on. Regarding this specific comparison, I think what was so phenomenal about Diana and AIDS is this was a global event, the way she single-handedly broke down the stigma. I mean, it was something that phenomenal, rather like the campaign against landmines. I mean, she would have, had she lived, undoubtedly, I think, been an ambassador, one of Britain's most persuasive and most high-profile ambassadors to do good. And I think the landmines, which we've subsequently, there's been so much praise about what she did, and it was followed by a treaty. So, I mean, this was a formidable achievement. Obviously, it's very different when I mean, I was looking at the numbers involved. The definition of homelessness, of course, not just being what a lot of people think of somebody sleeping rough, but someone in accommodation that's temporary and so forth. This is apparently some 300,000 people are somewhat itinerant in this regard. So you are looking at an enormous problem. Yes, of course, this is a matter for the government. And yes, well, I agree with Charles. I mean, obviously, at the moment, we're dealing with a pretty seismic political month, not less, I mean, week, looking even at what happened yesterday. It's very, very hard to see the government taking new initiatives. I mean, there are those who would say that the prince is in the political domain, but then exactly the same argument could have been adduced when King Charles, when Prince of Wales founded the Prince's Trust, because it was to help disadvantaged young people. And this was, of course, in the political arena in the sense that all parties supposedly wanted to do so. But of course, he built it up to something phenomenal, and over 1 million benefited. So we'll have to see how many people William is, for example, able to help. But what we do see is the will is there, and also the profile, the brand. Had if he wasn't royal, we wouldn't get the feed that the progress that's made so far, and the progress that in these 6 centres, and obviously that will be spread a bit wider. I mean, he's also going to do, there'll be changes that will happen, I think, in the Duchy of Cornwall, and how that is run. That also is some significance. But yes, I mean, it's as a comparison directly, I wouldn't have phrased it quite in those terms, but I do think what he's doing is marvelous.
Agreed. Charles, Richard just mentioned Prince William, how it could be interpreted as political. We're talking about Diana and the landmines. Isn't there a video of Diana when she is pursuing this landmine initiative? Doesn't a woman say to her,
Yes,
this is too political, and Diana's clearly shaken by it?
yeah, I was actually there when it cropped up. It was a BBC reporter who had said that there had been a bit of a kerfuffle back home among MPs because Diana was seen as being interfering and all this. And this was put to Diana, and yeah, you're right, Diana was quite shaken by this. And Diana's response was, "I'm only here to try to help."
Mm.
And Richard mentioned that she was heavily involved in the treaty, which was I think it was called the Canada Treaty, to try and get rid of landmines. And I've been with the Princess on a number of those occasions where she's walked through landmine area. I mean, obviously not without knowledge of where they'd been cleared, so that she was wearing all the gear. And it's right. When you get someone like Diana or Prince William or Catherine promoting or helping to promote a cause that's deep rooted in their hearts, that cause earns a staggering amount of help and money. And I mean, I remember that with the I think it was the landmines that when Diana was the figurehead, you're talking about $10,000 a plate at an event just to help money for charities for the landmines.
Fun fact, Meghan Markle's to go to her museum her museum event where she was going to get an award that they canceled because of the LA riots the day of Trooping the Color, $1,500. $1,500.
That's a bargain basement price. That is. But I mean, you then brought in other figureheads. I think there was a Queen Noor was brought in after to head up the landmines project, and it wasn't the same. They had a footballer, a man called David Ginola, a very famous footballer in France and in the UK. He too was a figurehead for that, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't Diana, and that's the whole point. You get a Diana or a William or a Catherine turn up to support your event, then you are going to do well out of it.
I did not.
The charities are, sorry, not personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not prep either one of you for this question, so I apologize in advance. But based on the conversation we're having, I'm curious to know your opinion. Um, we recently saw this scandal where the millionaire was caught, in a cash for access situation,
Yeah.
offering up Prince William. And it was a really strange situation. Prince William had no idea this was going on, but she was telling people that would donate to her charity, not Prince William's, not anything that Prince William was affiliated with. If you donate a specific amount to my charity, I will take you with me when I get access to Prince William and Catherine. And she also said, don't share this message. So of course that message was shared and she's caught out. She's turned comments off on her Instagram because I was willing to leave a few of them. And I was stopped. But I thought that was a really interesting story. There are pictures, a lot of pictures of her with Prince Harry on her Instagram account. So clearly she has spent a significant amount of money with charities that they're involved in for access to them. This is a slippery slope because these people give you credibility when you're standing next to them in a photo. Now people go, oh, how important are you? You've got a picture with Prince Harry on your Instagram. And when we talk about Catherine Catherine pursuing less than Prince William when it comes to being patron of some of these things or some of her interests, I almost wonder in a positive way if it's self-preservation, because if you give access to too many people, too many organizations, that's where things like this happen, where you have people scheming behind the scenes and using your name, your image to elevate themselves. Do you think, that might not even be what their thought process is. Richard, if you want to answer this first, that'd be great. That might not even be on their radar. They just might be like, hey, if we focus on the things we're great at, we'll excel at those things and we can make real change. But as we've been discussing this, I've been thinking, I think it's really smart that they minimize versus being like Prince Philip, God love him, who I think it was at least 90 charities at one point that he was helping with, because it helps them to control the image.
Yeah, regarding Prince Philip, it was an unbelievable number. In Giles Brandreth's book, it actually details the extent of his charitable work. And I would have to look up the number because I remember seeing the number of, if you added to just charities, institutions, organizations, it was unbelievable, quite literally.
We don't have enough fingers or toes between all of us right here.
But it is the extraordinary thing with Prince Philip, because it was accompanying the Queen on every trip that she took. His books, what he did singly, it was just unbelievable. But you're quite right, of course. With a spread that vast, you simply can't personally control. This was, I think, one of the problems regarding the Prince's former aide, Michael Fawcett, and accusations that occurred around him. And the problem, I think, also is when the story like this gets into the press, you see an image, you see a headline. Most people do. They wouldn't know the name of the person. They wouldn't know any of the details. In the case, for example, of King Charles when Prince of Wales, of course, he was involved with so many charities. There were over 20 of his personal charities, and sometimes the names changed and so on. So it was very difficult for people to follow. It was an enormous charitable amount of charitable work. And of course, William and Catherine prefer to do their own. But the bit that worries me in this is that all people are likely to remember was there was an undesirable individual who boasted that they get cash for access because they happened to support a charity that Prince William was organizing or running. They would then get money from friends of theirs, and then this is it's the public perception of this that's so worrying. And the Prince William knew absolutely nothing about it. I don't doubt that's the case. The problem is that there are irresponsible elements in the press, and Charles has mentioned online, which is so uncontrollable. And it's just these people do remember the phrase cash for access. It's rather like the honours system and problems that occur there. So, I do think it's deeply worrying, but I wonder whether it's just a question of modernising in the sense that they are doing far, far less, whereas I'm going to look up the number of charitable organisations Prince Philip was linked to. Believe me, it went into the hundreds. I just simply couldn't believe that a living being could possibly do all this. But the problem would be you'd have vast staffs. You couldn't deal with it in any other way. And this publicity was very unhelpful, simply because, as I say, all people would take from it was this idea that royals wouldn't pay attention to where they got their money. And there have been some cases in the past. Pound sacks full of money were delivered on one occasion, this sort of thing, not to Prince William. So they have
to his dad. It wasn't that to King Charles? Okay. Charles, do you have any reaction to that? Do you see it all as them? Is it modernizing? Is it protecting their image? I always do feel like Prince William and Catherine are just a little ahead of the curve and have a better understanding.
I think the royals themselves have got to be very, very careful with the people that they deal with, particularly those who've got money, particularly the billionaires and the millionaires, who want to get access to them to be closer. And this lady that we're talking about, this millionaire, she was offering access to Prince William for £20,000, which I think is a cut rate when you consider that the Duchess of York only a few years ago was charging £500,000 to get access to Prince Andrew. That's not going to be happening. That's not going to be happening again. And you've got this famous situation with the money that in Tesco carrier bags that was delivered to Fawcett's office from some Arab sheikh. Now he was trying to get him a knighthood of some sort. I mean, that got caught out. But it's quite interesting that Kensington Palace moved very, very quickly on this one.
They killed it.
And they killed it stone. And I agree with Richard that, unfortunately, people are just going to remember, they see the phrase cash for access or honours for access or whatever, and that's what they're going to remember. They don't remember the fact that William's people actually shut it down straight away within hours of it, of their knowledge of it happening. Now, this woman will never get access to any member of the royal family ever again. She's on, if they've got a blacklist, well, she's certainly on the blacklist. There's no question about that. So
is she before Meghan Markle or after Meghan Markle?
What do you mean?
On the list of not being able to have access to the royals anymore.
No, Meghan is certainly still number one. There's no question about that. She's never going to be knocked off. That's a residency she's got there.
That's her Vegas residency. I love that. We're talking about the success of William and Catherine and how they have been so strategic. And you're right. I mean, one thing I wish I would have written down, because this has stayed with me. I watched a documentary about fake news and how we consume headlines. And if the headline is false, even if there's a follow-up, for some reason our brains digest the initial salacious headline, and we don't keep the follow. Just kidding, that didn't happen. Our brains don't keep that information as much as we grab a hold, like I'm just going to say it, the Richard Gere gerbil story. I'm sure it's not true, but most of us associate Richard Gere with gerbils. Okay. And so that's why I think you're so right when it comes to nipping these types of stories in the bud so quickly. But unfortunately, sometimes the salacious headline sticks with people and they miss, or they just simply forget the follow-up, which can be, that wasn't even true. And of course, the correction doesn't blow up as much as the salacious headline initially did. So the reach is never the same. But we're talking about Catherine and Prince William being superstars. And this is a great one for you, Richard, because you ran a social list, right? At one point, you ran a social list, and Tatler has created 100 significant movers and shakers across the UK. These are sports superstars, politics, and show business. Now, I think it's important that we acknowledge first place, William and Catherine, obviously. They say that they just love Catherine's grit, that evolution of her cancer struggle, and the superstar we see today, this force of nature, literally trying to get us to step outside. But it's also interesting to see Posh and Becks at number 5. Harry and Meghan, sorry, I've gone here, are totally missing out, Richard. They're totally missing out. They are not on this list because they've chosen to sell apricot fruit spread. My mind is blown.
Well, I think, for example, firstly, I welcome. I mean, the fact William and Catherine are so high is a tribute, I think, to their wonderful work and also the pressures they're under, but also how they're solving them, and also, touch wood, moving forward and moving the monarchy forward. That doesn't surprise me, because I remember that it wasn't that long ago that William was voted just, I think it was 1% ahead of President Zelensky of Ukraine as the most popular figure in America. So
don't forget the sexiest bald man, but yes, continue.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
I'm sorry, Charles, you're number 2.
I do think that regarding Posh and Becks, I'm absolutely delighted. Of course, he got his knighthood. But one of the things, I mean, when I was editor of International Who's Who, I obviously followed the honours system because it was relevant to who went in the book, a certain percentage of which came from Britain. And obviously, I thought it was ridiculous it took so long. Quite frankly, I mean, he was a national icon years and years ago. And I mean, it wasn't just the numbers of caps for England or the England captain or the charitable work for UNICEF on that extraordinary brand, that everything he did, from his tattoos to wearing Adidas. I mean, we knew about it, we learned about it, and Victoria got an OB. I thought that was marvelous because she's rather a talented designer. I think as a couple, I think they've really made waves. And the friendship, since you mentioned the
Meghan,
who, you've broken the taboo. It's people like Posh and Becks who Meghan and Harry ought to be cultivating, and we know, of course, there was a closeness there, and that was quite a distance, was quite a while ago, and the reasons were very, very clear. That apparently it was thought that Meghan was perhaps a little untrustworthy. Can you imagine that? I find some difficulty in coming to terms with that thought, but it's that aspect of it, it's that level that Harry and Meghan, I mean, had they remained, for all the pressures and all the problems that they've said it caused, and I don't doubt that in some cases it did. Facts were, however, that if you see the geopolitical scene at the moment, the way King Charles is balancing this extraordinary business between, for example, opening the Canadian Parliament, about to welcome President Trump for the second state visit, it said, in September. There's President Macron, and next week France. So that too, with the G7 and NATO, which the meetings we've just seen, absolutely dominated, of course, by one individual. We know who that was, and it's absolutely pivotal, I think, seriously pivotal, the royal family at the moment, because for the projection of British soft power, because we know William has done a lot of visiting China, visiting Israel and the occupied Palestinian
meeting with Trump. Yeah, he met with Trump too, and that was a big deal.
Yes, absolutely. The Notre Dame, the meeting that was arranged there, playing the Trump card, the one card we have, because President Trump is consistent on this one point.
He loves royals. He loves the royals.
But the reason I brought it up was the fact that had they remained, for all the problems, Harry and Meghan, president and vice president of Queen's Commonwealth Trust, I seem to remember. They would have been able, especially with her American heritage, they would have been playing a very significant role in events, whatever they thought of them and however stressful it was. They're not. So they're not in the list. I wouldn't expect them to be in the UK. I think their popularity is so unbelievably low. It hasn't plummeted to Andrew's levels yet, but nonetheless, it's
We're
terrible.
getting there. Charles, I mean, I feel like Posh and Becks are the epitome of what Harry and Meghan could have been
Yeah.
had they built themselves around something similar. We could be wearing Meghan Markle pencil skirts again, which is something she did while she was at Suits, buying Meghan Markle lip liner, which Meghan Markle hinted that she might inevitably do. But the way Posh and Becks got there was all positivity and love and knowing how to truly work the press. They have never been venomous, even dealing with everything going on with Brooklyn and Nicola. It's you still see David on Father's Day thanking his children for being his babies while Brooklyn's like ignoring him on his birthday. They are a great example. They lead a great example. Do you agree?
I agree, and I'm like Richard. I think Posh and Becks are splendid. I mean, he was a fantastic footballer. He's certainly a fantastic ambassador for this country. There's no question about that. I hope you're not suggesting that I should wear a pencil skirt and have some lip liner at all. But it's interesting that Posh and Becks have got the same problem as William and Catherine have, in that they have a family rift.
Oh, yes.
As well, so they have, I mean, it's not a great thing to have in common, but that they're battling that as well, and they're still doing. And I, like Richard, believe that Bex should have got his knighthood a long time ago. I mean, unfortunately, he had a problem with the tax man, which was cleared up, and I think that was one of the things that stopped him getting it earlier. But yeah, they deserve to be on this list. William and Catherine, I'd have been surprised if they were anything but number one on this power list.
And Charles, when we look at the way both couples are handling the drama behind the scenes, they stay above the fray. They never complain, never explain.
Sure.
They are above it all. And I think that I continue to say to people, the reason Meghan Markle's brand struggles today, aside from operational failures, aside from the fact that twice now she's oversold products, had to issue apologies and refunds, which is totally unacceptable, aside from the fact that she never has enough stock, which it's not exclusivity, it's logistical failure. I think one of the reasons we don't like them and we're not buying the Betty Crocker brand she's trying to sell us today is because first impressions matter. And for a lot of Americans, their first impression of her was nasty. She was angry on a couch sitting next to Oprah while the world was in lockdown, complaining about titles and tiaras. And not only was it hard to relate to as a regular person, this woman who's mad that Archie isn't a prince, but later on, very quickly, we find out that there wasn't a lot of truth to some of her worst allegations. It is the secret to William and Catherine and David and Victoria's success. Put on a happy face. Just deal with it. Keep moving. Stay positive.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like whenever I see David Beckham and Victoria, they're always smiling, especially when they're at a royal matter that they're helping the king with. But even in some of the videos that David puts out, like his beekeeping or
Yeah.
some of the family things that he does. I mean, there's always a smile. It's always a fun thing that they're doing. And I do agree with you that they stay above the row, the simmering row that's going on within the family. They try and keep contacts open. They still send him messages. Okay, he's not responding at Brooklyn. He's not responding to those messages. It's difficult, but I mean, just because you are a superstar or a royal superstar doesn't mean you don't have family problems, as we know. it's the same. We've all had family problems at one time or another.
It's true. Well, I mean, for the most part, we did manage to go an entire episode without really diving into Harry and Meghan. So I would like a round of applause for all of us. There were a few mentions here and there, but we didn't go full scale, and that's the important thing. We had a really, I think, wonderful conversation about the Prince and Princess of Wales, who contribute so much more to the world and so much more to society than two people that told us they were stepping down to pursue a life of service in America, which I have yet to witness. So, Charles Ray, thank you so much for spending
Pleasure.
time with me today. Richard Fitzwilliams, your insight is always so wonderful and so brilliant. And if you're watching, agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. And press or put a heart in the chat if you love Catherine and William. I know that the chat will blow up with tons of hearts there because we do love them here. Thanks to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.